Tell me, because I don't think I've ever seen an article breaking down. I've seen some basic stuff over the last couple of years about you in poker, Octopi Poker, as far as your entrepreneurial beginnings. Share us a little bit about your business and entrepreneurial background, your passions and focus that have been, present in your life, at the forefront in your life for most of your life until recently, uh, dipping your toes into poker and starting Octopi Poker.
Yeah, so poker now is a 3-year journey. It's it's how do I call it? I mean, part of it is obsession. I think still it's still new enough for me to be kind of in love with the game, but it's also now a much more kind of a premeditated, I would say, sort of calculated investment of time and effort to try to be hopefully one of the best in the game. But yes, this prior to this, I had a career largely in tech, largely in Silicon Valley. In my early years were playing chess. Seriously, I would say competitively. I was just definitely competitively, not professionally because I was too young for that, but that was potentially one of the tracks forward.
Mhm.
And I ended up not doing that, but focusing on mathematics and computer science. My first business was actually a professional chess academy, both physical and in the early days of internet. The online chess academy was really my first foray into internet businesses. 1994, 95. My goodness, really really early days of the internet. And then the really professional track took center part in my professional career. So I worked for a number of companies. I worked for Ford Labs. I worked for Sun Microsystems for over 10 years. I was part of the regional research team that built and commercialized the very first cloud. That was 2004, 2005, early 2006. So I believe that that's the next big thing in the computing world, and I was ready to go do it on my own. I was 35. I left corporate environment, hopefully for good, and started a company called Grid Dynamics. And that company was arguably one of the very first practical technology company dedicated to building clouds and helping other companies build theirs. Um, and it had succeeded in surviving and becoming, somewhat major player, not in building clouds, but being a consulting and engineering company, helping others harness the cloud. And we ultimately went public in the first year of COVID. I stayed with the company to help recover from the aftermath of that. And exactly 3 years ago, I've retired, and I thought I'm done with tech completely. At that point in time, I left Silicon Valley. I moved to Montana, and I thought I'll dedicate myself to then big passion of mine, which is long distance backpacking and mountaineering. Montana seemed like a perfect place to leave civilization behind and competitiveness behind, and just focus on mindfulness and exploration of wilderness. But tell God your plans and watch it laugh with you, or something along those lines. Somehow along the way during COVID, when I couldn't hike and backpack, my guilty pleasure became watching final tables of big MTT events. And when the COVID ended, which conveniently exactly 3 years ago was the World Series of Poker 2021 in October, November, I thought, why don't I take 10 days off and fly to Vegas and see what this is all about? And the rest is history.
Well, is that where you met Andrew first, or began? How did you begin your poker study? Was it books? Well, you said videos, obviously, from great final tables, but obviously you had an interaction with some of the top players when you jumped in.
Yeah, when I was watching final tables before World Series, I wasn't really studying. It's more like I was just enamored with the game, with personalities, with the fact that I wasn't understanding what was going on. I mean, they were playing cards. I knew the rules of poker, and yet they seemed to be thinking about something else entirely. Rangers, blockers, like none of these things made sense to me at the time, but it was fascinating. I could understand there were layers and layers and layers that were not meeting the surface, and yet these wizards were able to manipulate them. And so the study really started after I went and played in a World Series. I went for 10 days, I think stayed a little longer. I played 14 events, and beginner luck. I ended up cashing for over 30,000. I've
Wow.
cashed, I think, in 10 events. I won one of the dailies. I think at the Aria or Win, like literally my first or second tournament, which was obviously high morale. I cashed in some ridiculous tournaments, 5K max, shootout, a bunch of other events. I had really no business to have deep runs, but again, beginner luck obviously was very helpful to say, whoa, whoa, I really, really, really love this game. I got to get good at it. So my poker study really dates after World Series.
Okay.
And as I mentioned many times, I had a good fortunes of running into Sam Grafton during World Series repeatedly, and he was the one who agreed to kind of introduce me to GTO, I guess. So Sam was technically my first coach, but I did indeed meet Chewy very quickly after that. This was actually, I think it was December 2nd. And it was the very first PGT 10K that I played. I heard about PGT,
Yeah.
high roller events. And I went to Vegas to play in them early December 2021. And I entered the very first one. And I was like a tourist looking around and just seeing these like incredible crushers all around me. I
Yeah.
was very uncomfortable, very intimidated, major like imposter syndrome. So I sat very quietly. But I guess maybe being scared and uncomfortable led to trying to play the best that I can. Lucky too was at my table in the middle of the tournament, directly to my left. We ended up playing a lot of blind on blind hands, and Chewy being as curious human as he is. You don't often see 50-year-old grandmas just kind of appear from nowhere and jumping into 10Ks. So he tried to break ice, get me in a conversation. I didn't know who he was, but I was just kind of generally pretty shy. But I guess I impressed him well enough. And then Peter Schenk, from close friend of Andrew and part of the same poker family, and Nick Schulman, they were all there.
Yeah.
And I ended up making final table with Nick. I ended up cashing. It was all very high morale. And after that, Andrew gave me his phone number and we started chatting. He encouraged me to ask him poker questions. I did. We started running into each other into more tournaments. And in a mere 5 or 6 months after that, the friendship developed. And they kind of, I always joke that they adopted me into their poker family.
That's pretty lucky to be adopted in that kind of family because coming, over the last 20 years, interviewing these young players who, back when Chewy was 20 or 21 when I was talking to him, and Bonomo and all, and Ike and all these guys, the main thing they told me was they were hanging out or living with other players. So they're always able to discuss hands. The game was very different back then. It's evolved a lot, but it was the beginning of what these guys and ladies too were doing that changed the game. And, people like Doyle and Negreanu or Phil Hellmuth had to keep up. And some of, Doyle definitely did. And Negreanu is really dedicated to those sort of things, learning all the time. So, what did you learn the most from running into this, group of players in the
Yeah, it was an
beginning?
incredible stroke of luck, obviously, that has happened. It does indeed not happen very often with people who enter, the field late in life. I think, to my both luck and credit, I had something to offer in return. They were also fascinated with my background and prior experiences. I was making fairly fast progress in poker. I was very dedicated to the game. They appreciated and respected that, and I also came with a lot of business background.
Yeah,
And poker players, especially as they get farther into their careers, they are fascinated by business too. And but they're not very good at it, and not being very good at it is kind of dangerous. You expose yourself to be taken advantage of or whatnot. So we very quickly arranged, came to this understanding that while they will be helping me with my poker journey, I'll be helping all of them with their business journeys or questions or whatnot. And that worked out to everybody's advantage. And initially, it was just very informal. I was just happy to advise and consult them on whatever business matters they may have in their lives.
Right.
But then, very quickly, it led to actually creation of a company of our own.
So when did that germ of an idea, and where did it come from? And the name also is very interesting because poker does have many arms and many depths, like you talked about, and like you talked about the depths of the sea, the octopi. So tell me about how it morphed into a conversation about creating this company using AI, and
Everything happened literally in the course of one night.
I figured.
We were in Florida during one of the WPT Hard Rock festivals. Chewy has just won 50K. Morale was super high. This was my chance to sweat somebody, who just took down, the 50K. It was just an amazing experience for me. And as there was frequent tradition at that time, we would often just hang out well into the wee hours of the morning and talk about stuff. This particular time or this particular day, the subject came around really my journey through poker. And I was into this for about 6 months now,
Okay.
somewhat seriously. And, I tried to do what pros told me I need to do. You need to get a solver, here is Paya. You need to play online, here is ICR. You need to, record your hands, here is Poker Tracker 4. So that night, I just unloaded on them how much I hate all of them, how awful poker tools are as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
We start with the fact that I have not been on a PC for 25 years at this point in time, never intended to. This stuff doesn't run on Mac. Um, so next is Poker Tracker 4 is probably number one ugliest software that I've ever seen. It didn't change in whatever 15 or 20 years. Didn't
Yeah.
seem to intend on changing. It's incredibly clumsy, clunky, and just kind of ugly. So is Paya. Paya actually got a little prettier since. But still, the barrier is insanely high. And then starting to look at the solver inputs, outputs as a newbie, and I'm not unsophisticated, either computer user or mathematician. I was like, oh my God, what is this? This is not designed for humans. The barrier is insane. I don't want to use it. And then they were like, well, I don't know. Like we use it and it's fine. And so we started dissecting what's wrong with it, and they started asking me if I had a chance to redesign all of it from scratch, what would I do?
Right.
And that gets my juices floating. And so I went on to say, just really ideate what I would do, how it has to be a cloud base, how it has to be designed around humans, how it has to be much less about what would solver do and much more about what are the ideas and heuristics that humans can surmise out of how machine thinks, if you will, and how do you apply this to practice. It had to be beautiful, it had to be fluid, it had to be beginner friendly, it had to be something that people who are just starting their journey towards poker theory can comprehend and start kind of having fun and gain value very quickly, but also not so dummy as you actually don't get lifelong insights from it as your mastery progresses. And we also talked about economics of computing and why you need to be on the cloud and why harnessing the power of the cloud is something that allows you to compute, very complicated things very quickly, allows you to scale and whatnot.
Right.
And so by morning, Chewy, as visionary and excitable as he is, he was like, "I'm in. Let's go build a company. We have everything in house." And Philip was there, and Philip got very excited as well. And so by morning, we made sure that we got some sleep and woke up and still wanted to do that. But in the morning, all that everybody could think about, let's form the company. We have all the skill sets, in house, and go kind of rethink, poker study from scratch. And we ended up executing on that. Now, in short succession, Chewy quickly reached out and brought Johan, who was another member of the team, the one and only European member, kind
Okay.
of up and coming, bright star in poker and the poker theoretician and kind of a sim master in the group, along with Phil, and then Nick, who got very interested in the project from the beginning. And I've reached out and brought a couple of people that's been with me through a number of startups. And like literally a week later, the company was born.
So how did you come up with the name? How was that approached?
The
That's something to
name,
fun.
actually, the name got a good chunk of time. The name we only agree on at the end of the year. It was December 2020. Oh gosh, 2022.
Right.
We literally needed to start like launching at least ideas and talk about this and start raising money and whatnot. And we needed a name. It took 8 months to, or something like that, 7 months to get to that. And we had different proposals. And Octopi was a name that I loved from the first time it kind of occurred to me. And what's not to love? There is just so many allegories. It's a most intelligent sea creature and maybe potentially creature in all of Earth. It's a shapeshifter. It's a problem solver. He's elusive and he's a predator. And then the whole it has eight. It has nine. It has nine brains and three hearts, and it's just the most incredible thing ever.
Wow.
And plus, it's cute. Uh, and it actually gets to something that I want to talk more about the brand that we want to build and the kind of user experience that we want to build. If you look at generally sort of terms that poker community use and the mentality behind it, it's incredibly sort of zero sum game. It's win lose. It's the sharks and the fish.
Right.
It's the, you look at the theme of, I don't know, GTO Wizard run it once, GTO Labs. It's like, you know, crush your competition, right? It's all very macho and it's all very like, it's all about crushing others. Extremely self centric, extremely egotistic, extremely win lose.
Right.
And we all, the founders, don't really view poker that way. For all of us, as much as it is a game that you try to win and it's very competitive, uh, there is a pure joy in studying the game, understanding the game, competing with the game, gleaning insights. It's the journey, it's the self improvement. So we've never really thought about this in these terms. We thought about it, oh, the poker community is like the best community that we have found a home in. It's our tribe. And the aspect that you've talked about learning together and lifting each other and discussing poker, and that being as as important as anything else, and also as much as we are adversary at the felt, it's a very small community of peers and friends outside of the felt. So this notion of sharks and fish just really did never resonated with me very much. But
Right.
like octopus, the smartest and the most intelligent creature out there, um, is seems like a just kind of a perfect concept. And it's then the George and Tom were born, our lovely mascots.
Okay.
And they're envisioned to be kind of your guides into through your path to poker mastery.
Very cool. My cat was listening, I guess, and decided to jump up. I'm not going to
Very,
be
very cute.
business. This is
Who's
Chi.
that?
Her name is Chi. She has
Hey.
a lot of energy. I've done a lot of martial arts in my life and Chinese practices, so
Mm-hmm.
Chi is energy, obviously, and she's
Oh
obviously
yes,
she heard your voice and wanted to come up and say hi.
very cute. Hi, Chi.
Amadio Chi, say hello, Chi. Look at my notes here. So quickly, this is all we're going. I know we're going around, and I'll figure it out when I put the article together. It's
Sure.
like always like a puzzle. Um, so you also became. Oh, before we go there, let's see my notes here. How did the transition from being very good at chess? Seems to be some chess players getting into the game. Even Ike Haxton's going back now and playing more chess. He's talked about it. And you've got the Botezes and other people that play chess. What was that kind of transition? How do you compare the two games? Even though
Yeah,
one, there's no luck in chess, but how do you compare the transition?
yeah, they are interesting enough. I kind of think of them as the bookcases of my of my professional career. I spent 10 years almost exclusively when I was young, just focusing on chess apart from school. Every waking moment of my life, and now it's all poker. They're very. I mean, there's obvious commonality. They're very complicated games. They're very mathematically based games. You have to be able to compute a lot. There is, very strenuous discipline that needs to be around, both learning and playing. It's very tiring, but in chess, we could play, 2 6-hour games in a day. In poker, we could have 12, 14-hour sessions, just being able to stay concentrated at the, high intensity for the duration of basically entire day. I think is a very important skill, and that both chess and poker players share that. You work with somewhat similar tools, although I studied chess before chess solvers. Um, but then there is vast differences. I ironically, looking back, found that almost everything that I remember being extremely kind of arduous and difficult in chess is joyful in poker.
Huh.
And I think poker is just a game that naturally fits me a lot better. And I think I could be better in poker than I could ever be in chess, regardless of the amount of effort that I would put in it. Um, the aspects of poker that has to do with variance and been able to both mathematically ascertain variances the right way and make your moves, with variance being one of the big factors. Chess doesn't have it. I love it because it mimics life. I always found that skills in chess and skills in life are completely orthogonal. And in some sense, the better you're in chess, probably the weirder you are as a human, and maybe less predisposed to be successful in other aspects of life.
Yeah.
Poker is certainly not that, because poker is as close to a perfect model in the game of real life that I've ever seen, and that part fascinates me. Um, I back into poker from two angles. One is kind of from chess to poker, but the other from business to poker. And
Right.
I actually view business as as the game, and it has its own game theory, a lot of it, and it has the game tree. And I think it's the one thing that is considerably more complicated than poker. Poker is kind of a toy game relative to business
Yeah.
in terms of the size of the tree, in terms of the stakes. Like the highest stakes poker still doesn't come anywhere close to how high of a stake you're playing, and when you're entrepreneur. But the
Right.
variance is just as vast. It's just in poker we have frameworks to deal with variance. In business we don't, and poker is very helpful for me to then apply those frameworks to then understand variance in business and life. But having kind of learned for better part of my life how to deal with high variance, very high consequence, uh, situations, the risks and rewards, the bettings and whatnot, that naturally happens in business, they very naturally apply to poker.
Right.
Poker is also, unlike chess, is the game of information, incomplete information, and the game of exploits. And there, chess couldn't be any more different than poker. Not that we don't prepare specific openings against specific opponents or try to glean some information and help us make the decision, but it's not even 1% of what's happening in poker. However, in business, ability to operate with incomplete information, glean information, make reads, make very nuanced calls based on combination of, what you don't know, what you can guess, what you can surmise, histories and whatnot, is very much there, and there is very direct applicability to poker. So
Yeah.
I find that between chess and life and business, I can have a lot of transfer learning that applies to poker.
I agree. The game of life. There's an author, Robert Scheinfeld, I think it is. I think you'd like it, the game of business life, the business game, or something like that. It's about creating your life and creating businesses. He's a very interesting writer about using the law of attraction and about the way the universe really works and applying it to business. I'll say, I have the book. I'll send you it. It might be something you've already read, though.
Oh, I have
Um,
not.
yeah. So we'll get back to these. Are all interesting, and I would have never thought about until you started talking. But we'll get to some of the points you brought up in the email. Hold on.
Sure.
Let's see. Make sure we leave time. Okay. Yeah. The last question is very important. But also, you seem to be not seem to be. You have become a supporter in a big way for the growth of women in poker. Can you and inspired some women then watch the journey? It's been a big year for women in poker.
Yes.
Besides just Christian Fox and the women wearing winning events, mixed game events all over the place, which I love. Can you share a little bit about your passion for that?
I can talk a little bit about that, and actually, this kind of a side journey of Pocket Queens is very critical to also understanding the journey of Octopi and kind of where we are and where we're going with it.
Okay,
Yeah, the story on Pocket Queens is that about 2 years ago, I've kind of been approached by a group of women after World Series. There were five of them. They were friends from LA who said, we'd like to study poker. Can you get us started?" And I thought, okay, I'll try to help you. I was in my year one journey, so um, I set up a study group for them, much the same way as the study group that I was invited in was set up. So we got a Discord server. I started running weekly lessons. I encouraged them to post hand histories. And then I started tapping into my growing array of friends, elite poker players, asking them to come and deliver a lecture, to which most of them said yes.
cool.
And then kind of completely unexpected happened where they told this to their friends and friends told them to their friends, and the organization just kind of started morphing and creating and growing. And there was a basic tenet from the beginning where let's make it 100% free, let's make it volunteer based, and let's make sure that this is not just a social club for women who like poker. This is for people who want to actually study. So it's a study group, first and foremost, for people who want to get better at poker, and that's like one thing that unites us all. But
Okay.
then it quickly became a camaraderie and a sisterhood and a support system, and an organization that all of a sudden discovered, power of in fact impact the industry positively. And now 2 years later, I mean, it's been probably already more successful than most companies that like I have ever seen in my life. And it's not even a company, even though we recently started the process of incorporating as a nonprofit. But it has somewhere close to 1,000 members all over the world, incredibly active. We have multiple leagues. We have No Limit League. We have Mixed League. We have Heads Up League. We have daily study sessions. We have weekly, big lectures. We have incredible set of content. We have relationship with now major tour operators. They sometimes make the seats to various events available to us. We create tournaments. For example, this incredible event that PokerStar has just put out,
Yeah.
um, which is a women winter festival in London. I believe we got maybe one seat that we were gonna play for. So we created a 3-day heads up championship. Was
Oh,
incredibly competitive. Day three final table was streamed, and I tried to commentate it, and a bunch of people watched, and very deserving winner was sent to London. It's just a remarkable community in its own right. And I do believe that, not that I want to claim a lot of credit for it, but the what seems like the wave of women performance in open field events, in main event final tables, in bracelets won, just number of people who have career changing scores, is like a wave. I'm not surprised at all. I think poker community should be prepared to see that wave rising.
yeah. I just we talked as I touched on it. I go, well, it's away from what we're talking about, so it might not even be a part of the article. It might be a couple sentences, but I think it's another article to talk about women in poker as far as
But I
you
want to,
as
if I may, I want to talk about the role of Pocket Queens in forming at least my views on Octopi journey and what we're doing and who we're doing with for and how.
okay. Yeah, I was just saying this is probably a separate article about this journey with Pocket Queens. It's called Pocket Queens, right? That's the name of the
It's called Pocket
company.
Queens, yes.
Okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
almost see this as a standalone article since it's been such an impact on you and the women in poker, away from the Octopi journey we're talking about.
But I
But
want to tie them together with Octopi. It's very, very important.
okay, go ahead. Well, and we'll all sink that into it.
Right. So here is what happened since we have started Octopi. We
Okay,
started, 2.5 years ago, and I started Octopi Poker about the same time as Pocket Queens. And working alongside with Chewy and Philip and Nick and Johan, we collectively understand very well what the professional poker player journey is. And there's also some understanding of what recreational poker player journey is. Chewy has been long-standing lead coach of the Learn WPT. Um, Everybody is a coach. Everybody works with beginners and intermediate players. So there are a lot of ideas of what recreational players need, what new people to poker need, and obviously you need that in a platform like ours. Now, my vintage point, in addition to all of that, also being new to the game through my own experience, was also watching very carefully what are the attributes of people in the pocket queen communities are. And it is much less about them being women, much more about them being somebody at masses, if you will, we have professionals, but a lot of them poker is a hobby. They love the game. They want to do it as much as possible. They want to study and get better, but it's not something that they do full time. And one super important aspect of accessibility of poker study and poker tools, apart from just barrier of entry from the skill set perspective, is financial equation. How much money can somebody spend on getting better at a hobby? I have done studies, I've run polls, and what I have learned is that if you look at the where the poker tooling industry have gone, especially in the last 2 years.
Right.
Subscription to GTO Wizard, subscription to Upswing, subscription to Run It Once, subscriptions to GTO Labs. Anything of interest starts at $100 a month.
Okay.
Maybe it starts at 50, but very quickly anything meaningful gets to 100 to 150 to $200 a month. You're requiring somebody to put $1,000 to $2,000 a year towards studying for something that is a hobby. That is completely outside of reach of most recreational players. It is outside of reach of most of women. I know that definitively. I know a lot of people who will not be able to afford $50 basic subscription to GTO Wizard,
Right.
which by the way tripled for in the last 2 years as they become almost monopoly, which is what monopolies do.
Right.
If you look globally, if you look at the Asian market, you look at Latin American market, you look at parts of European markets, Eastern European markets, I believe that you need to have access to fully fledged platform for study poker somewhere around $20 a month.
Wow. Okay.
Nobody in the industry is doing this. And if you look at our pricing and if you look at our strategy, I will talk a lot about accessibility to poker study. Part of the word accessibility is the accessible for new people and not having spent 10 years being an elite pro in the first place to understand what solver is doing and why. But part of it is hugely important is financial accessibility. We believe that the market of millions, 10 of millions, probably 100 of millions of poker lovers around the world, mass market of poker study tools, um, they are at a $15 to $20 a month level. And that's huge focus of what we do. How can we build latest, greatest, best tools on the market at for masses at $20 a month?
Right. That's very interesting. I never even thought about it that way. That's interesting to have that perspective. And you're right. Um, the entry into the game. I've watched I've been doing it 20 years. So watching the, card runners and the early sites come on board, Poker X Factor and things like that. Um, Dive into Solve for Why, which might be 5 or 6 thousand if you want to go there for a weekend, right? For
Yeah.
Berkeley, and then run it once. The top courses for Putnam and Omaha or Doug Polk's site, the Upswing, is very expensive.
One
Um,
course will be $1,000. Subscription will be 100 to 200 a month. That is fine. There is a path to that. And
yeah,
a small, small, small tip of the iceberg of either incredibly wealthy people getting into poker late in life or people who are making a lot of money on it. They, don't care. They'll just buy every tool in the market.
yeah,
But if you're talking about true revolution, if you're talking about true mass market that no poker tool have ever penetrated, which is where our ambitions are, you have to make it far more affordable.
Very interesting. So since we're there, um, so where do you see the brand going forward, and how? I'm going to go reading your what hit. My last question, and some of the things we talked about, and we might digress in a second or two. But
Yes.
let's wrap. Let's talk about this as the most important: the future of Octopi, where you see the brand going forward, and how it differentiates. Which you sort of just said a little bit about the financial cost,
Yeah, I'd love to talk about
but
that.
and how it differentiates from the competition, and how everything else leads up to this. Your vision for the next few years with Octopi.
Yes. I love the question. So, first one I want to say is that Octopi is a very long game.
Okay.
It's definitely not get rich fast scheme. It's not something that we could just get in and solve right away. Yes, we need to be in the market reasonably quickly and spend reasonable amount of money developing it until we start monetizing it. But all in all, my view is that we're doing something that I think will change poker 10 years from now, and along the way. So that's one. Now we needed to spend the first couple of years building a foundational GTO tooling that is needed for everything. Now, I wish poker had a vibrant ecosystem where somebody would be in the business of just backend solvers that every other company can build on top of using APIs,
Oh yeah.
like in many other industries. I wish somebody would be making really high quality libraries and then offering these libraries as a backend service basis on the API,
Yeah.
so that somebody like us could create very innovative interfaces on top of these things. And I would love to partner with other companies.
Yeah.
However, poker ecosystem, tech ecosystem isn't mature enough for that at all. So we needed to build very deep capabilities in house. While we use other solvers, we had to write our own solver. We have our own solvers that can translate different solves into different formats and whatnot. We had to make sure that we could be infinitely scalable. That stuff is very hard. And then we invested a lot to figure out how to build software that is fun to use. Now we're just getting started along the way. It's really, really important, but we often hear from our community that they enjoy using Octopi better than any other tool out there. And it's very, very important to us. Wide range viewer, we have a traditional views, but we have a 3D views. We have much more emerging views. We spend inordinate amount of time trying to figure out colors that are not, hard on your eyes, that, that are organic and useful and whatnot. And this is just stretching the surface. So we've done a lot of these, I would say, basic infrastructure creation in 22, 20, well, 23, 24. 22 was more of an ideation year.
Right.
So now looking into 2025, we could start building some really, really cool things that are more on making poker study again more fun and much more approachable. One of the directions of big investments, and we've been doing this for the last 2 years, but we're going to do more of it, is one of the services on our site. It's called Ask George,
Okay. I
and
saw.
it's basically a chatbot octopus that can answer pretty good a fairly wide range of questions. We see huge future behind LLM, and we will attempt to build extremely sophisticated capabilities that where George can help you understand what's going on, why you're playing certain way, and what do you do in these situations, and what are the main ideas. And if you're playing with a trainer, and I want to talk a little bit about the trainer specifically. We've launched the trainer in late August of this year. It took
Right.
us 2 years, very long time, to bring this to market. And now, after 2 years, 2 months, people are telling us that that's the best trainer that they've ever used. And part of it is because how intuitive and interactive and fast and kind of pleasant and fun it is. That's very nice to hear. And this is just the beginning. There is so much more that we could do. Trainer is so cool because it's so interactive,
Right.
and you immediately playing and you're learning as you're playing. But current generation of trainers, you're playing with it and you make a mistake and it tells you you made a mistake. So the next question you ask why, and it's going to pop a range and say, see, you're supposed to do this, but you did that. And you go, why? And it will you, well, the EV of this is, 5% less than the best action. And you go, why? And after that, you're, off the deep end. You could dive into the post flop viewer. We put ton of tools so you could dissect, why fourth pair bluffs, but third pair doesn't. Uh, but it's very complicated, sophisticated, advanced stuff. Wouldn't it be cool if George just told you why you made a mistake?
Yeah.
Like, second pair is just way too good to fold.
Yeah, it's
Like,
simple
you
as
don't
that.
want to check raise without the, backdoor flush draw. So, anyways, we are doing a lot of original research in that area. We're very excited about this. There's, a lot of promising things on the horizon. So we'll continue to push the envelope to make basically AI and computer solvers come together and serve humans.
What's the next thing we should look forward to? But if someone's starting on Octopi right now, they should start with the trainer, correct?
I should definitely start with the trainer. And actually, if you're not an Octopi user, just go to octopi.ai. You don't even have to pay anything. You just click the big button Start Playing on our homepage. It's going to ask you to open free account. And you can immediately start training. It's just a couple of spots, but you very quickly develop a taste for what it is that you're doing. And by the way, our free tier is designed to bring a lot of value to you as is forever. We pay a lot of attention to ranges. Our community sometimes asks why we're moving so slowly adding ranges and sims, because we take inordinate care to make sure that they're good.
Right.
And most of the ranges in the industry aren't, and I'm not going to point fingers to any competition, but ours are designed with a huge care. And we put all the pre-flop ranges for MTTs free. It's part of the free tier. Best ranges in the industry, just flat out free. And you could play a little bit of the trainer, and we'll put more and more features there. Our view of the future is that if you're a poker player, if you're a poker lover, if you're a poker fan, if you're watching the streams, there's absolutely no reason for you not to have a free subscription.
Yeah.
And then from there on, the more studious you are, the more it's worth for you. The upgrade, which is sometimes with discounts and whatnot, runs you $12 a month.
That's amazing. Is Let me look at some notes I had here.
So the other direction, if I may, that we are also going to be investing in is just driving more and more insights. If you're playing with a trainer and you're making mistakes, then where are your mistakes? Like, where are your leaks? What can we tell you specifically about your play, and can we suggest custom training plans, and drills and stuff of that sort? And then going even beyond that, how far can we push gamification of study process?
Say that
Um,
again. Is how far we can go with what?
Gamification. How far can we gamify poker study process?
Okay.
All the founders and principals are kind of excited at this idea that we want to share with the world. We love studying poker
Mhm.
probably as much as playing. That's the common thing that unites the founders. This is rarely the case in the industry. Poker study is viewed as something incredibly arduous, and you kind of have to do it. It's a price of admission. But uncovering secrets of this incredible game, there is no reason why studying poker shouldn't be as much fun as playing poker. And frankly, with where the online poker is going, um, we're damn better try to figure out how to gamify the study process
Right.
for anybody who plays online or doesn't play online. So these are the kinds of directions that we are thinking about: how to be more social, how to enable people sharing things. Today in Octopi, you can share your hands, you can share sims, you can share comments. Oh, we're gonna make it. As the time goes by, we will invest in more capabilities of that sort. Um, George will hopefully become smarter and smarter and smarter and capable to be, the poker assistant that can really truly lower the barrier,
Right.
and just push the interfaces between human and a solver into stuff that is much more engaging, much more, humanly understandable, much more focused on ideas and heuristics and inflection points and whatnot than, solver, gems, king five of, but calls king six of. Good luck figuring out why.
Yeah, why is the interesting thing that all the great players, and I always use these two guys who I work with for years, Alex Foxen and Chance Corneth. They know all
Yes,
the solver work, but they also are mainly exploitive players,
yes,
working really knowing the why the solver's doing that, and then
yes.
finding out by watching very closely what players are doing to be able to exploit their mistakes
Yes.
or their leaks, like you talked about, which is very
Yes, and that's the true magic of poker. You need to know theory because that's where the ideas come from. But every situation is unique. You know, the premise of the GTO, if you played the spot 100,000 times over and over and over and over again, how can you glean, the little bit of EV versus alternatives? That's not real life poker. You're never going to play the same situation against same people with the same stack depth, same pressure, same
right.
morning coffee that they took or didn't take, or whatever is the case. So we free vibe through decisions, but knowing what to look at and what to think about and why certain ideas are good or bad is really the arsenal.
It's amazing. Let me look at a couple other questions here. And then you've also assembled some sort of. I didn't should have looked at the site before I came on. I've been on there many times. You have a team of pros that are offering lessons. Am I correct? Because Brian Hastings.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that. So first, maybe I talk a little bit about. So if you want to talk a little bit about Chewy and his journey, I
Okay.
mean,
Well,
to some extent we can.
yeah, 1 second. Yeah, we can. We don't need to talk about that. I was thinking. I was just
Yeah, we
looking.
won't do this much, but what I do
I
want to
know.
talk
I meant.
about.
Sorry. I meant. I don't need to talk about your bevy of players because this is really focused on Octopi and his future.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about maybe a different article about forum. I would love that. Maybe we could do a different interview and talk about our coaching marketplace and what it is and why we have it
That's a
and
whole
where it's
different
heading.
thing. We've gone a
Yeah,
couple different, digressed a couple different
we
topics.
already have a lot of stuff. Maybe let's just stay with core octopi.
Yeah, for sure. Let's stay with that because I know that PokerOrg loves you guys and especially Chewy writing all those cool articles, and he and I are of the same mindset in some respect as far as metaphysics study and
Yeah.
that stuff. So we vibed on putting those articles together. But
Yes.
so talk a bit about. So I recently saw a post from you that said you were leaving the company. And then I ran into you at a game in Vegas, and then you told me that things have changed around. So you guys, I talked to Andrew this morning about his evolution in the company and thought it was time for him to step away. Can you talk a bit about that journey with him and how that all progressed to where it is now?
Yeah, let me talk a little bit about this. And I will preface to say that I've started 12 companies over the years. And, vast majority of them have had some kind of dramatic changes in the founding team as the time went on. And Octopi certainly fits that scenario. It's not infrequent in the business world at all. Um, so when we started the company, um, we've decided that Chewy is going to be the CEO, and he was very interested in learning the ropes, and I was there to help him. We often spoke before that we had this kind of a interesting barter that I would help him to become the business leader, and he will help me to become, high stakes poker player. And for the better part of these 3 years, that's exactly what happened. And I will treasure that experience above all. It's been just a remarkable journey, and I think Shu is just a remarkable person in every possible way. And I learned a lot from them, and I really enjoy teaching him as well. So, uh, needless to say, it's an uphill battle to become a world class tech company CEO, even if it's a poker company. Probably more complicated journey than somebody like myself to become elite poker player.
Right.
And so along the way, we had fun and we were making progress, which wasn't always linear. I won't put words into his mouth, but I think as the time progressed, he was having less and less fun with it. And it increasingly led to more discussions about his vision of the company versus his vision of his own pass and track and my vision of the company. and we were not always aligned on those things. And progressing to maybe a month and a half ago or so, um, Chewy have kind of come to realization, probably first of all of us, which now we all share and appreciate, that changes probably was badly needed by all. Now, the first version of the change was Chewy asking me to step out, or both step down and step out, so that he could kind of lead the company towards the path that he saw for himself and for the company, to which I have agreed. But then, very quickly, in kind of gripping with the reality of what that actually means, Chewy have come to realize that that's probably not the right answer either. So we all kind of gotten back to the drawing board, and it's actually been decided that it's a Chewy who wanted to step down and pursue other things personally. And then it was just very natural for me to then step up to, to the plate and continue the journey. Very much along the path that I thought we were, set out to travel even from the beginning.
Right. Okay. Is there anything else I want to do?
Does that
One.
make sense?
Yeah, a lot of sense. Anything else you want to? I kind of want to. Anything else you want to talk about? We've covered such a gamut here. I almost want to make sure that our editor, that we actually get this up on Spotify and Apple, because just I think people, at least my mind, would want to hear everything you shared about poker and the evolution of the game and Octopi and your journey and all that. So
I want to maybe stick a little bit with the theme of people kind of coming and going, and how the personal brands of people that are involved in companies and then the brand of the company itself. It's a very interesting coevolution.
okay,
Out of the six founders that have started the company 2.5 years ago, we have three that are very much here and now today, and we have three that have left. And that's not very atypical or unusual. Now, for the three people who have left, this is a very first startup experience. And it's, the reality of what this day-to-day grind is like, and the obligations that you take from the community, from investors, from everybody else, and the amount of sacrifice that you need to do as a professional poker player is immense. And I think a lot of these departures have to do with the fact that people couldn't accurately predict just what of the scale of commitment this has been. I know that Chewy, practically almost stopped playing poker. I mean, he played poker during his CEO tenure, but significantly less so than before. And this conflict between here is what growing company needs from me versus here is what my life is, and I'm poker pro first and foremost, or something else, has been a big part of the frictions, if you will, and eventual departures. But at the same time, we have new people who have joined. And this is sort of a forever, evergreen process. The more company grows, much like families and other groups, people come together, they stay together, and then, some of them leave and new people join the groups and the tribes. If the group is successful, you're going to have those kinds of changes. So
yep,
we had some very exciting, positive changes where people join the company. There is and probably the most exciting addition has been Stevie Chidwick.
yep,
Stevie had joined around May. He've come on board as the ambassador and very quickly became core member of the leadership team. He has incredible ideas. He's an incredible person to work with. He definitely shaped the trainer. Is very heavily influenced by Stevie. Pretty much all product features that we've put up in the last 5 months and the things that are coming down the pike are significantly influenced by him. We all love the contributions, and that's been so far just incredibly gratifying experience working with him. Want to say a word about Johan? Uh, don't put it on the ready. I don't want to pronounce his last name. You might want to just get it. And no matter how many times I read it or say it, I just can't do this right. Um, but Johan has been incredible. His contributions have been incredible. He is very young man, but wise and experienced and smart beyond his age for sure, and he's learned so much in these 2 years, and he's definitely a big driving force. One of the changes that we have made recently, when Andrew was a CEO, I was sort of a chief product officer.
Mhm.
Now that I'm CEO, Johan have stepped up to own the product. The product is as beautiful as functional today, largely because of this role that Johan played all along. And now he's really in charge of it. And I think it's just an incredible step, both for him, for company, and for our community. I'm super excited. I want to say a word or two about Max Garbanov. He is our founding sixth musketeer and founding CTO. He is the one. He's a technology magician. He is the solver whisperer. He writes our solvers. He, reads and understands solvers. He is, every bit principle in everything we do. And then we have more people who've recently joined the Octopi tribe, if you will, in leadership roles, and I think we have just an incredible team to
No,
execute this.
it's so exciting, especially when you said like you want to see what poker's going to be like in 10 years. And what can, so you've seen what's happened at the WSOP with people using technology there and then having to keep the phone away from the table, even at Jimmy, even at the high stakes games and then no phones allowed. What do you see? Now you can wear Ray-Bans and have videos and talk to this meta thing. And I haven't even checked that thing out. So how do you see poker evolving in 10 years? We can wrap up this part of the interview. I'm curious where your vision, since you've started companies, for a long, long time, what's your vision 10 years? How do you see the game evolving in 10 years?
10 years is a very long term, but I will say this, and it's kind of a famous saying in tech, that change always happens slower than people expect, but it ends up being more profound than they expect. And I think poker is no different. Now, about the current trend of banning technology at the poker table, I could not be more supportive cheerleader of that. Now, I've long maintained incredibly radical standpoint ever since I joined poker, and I started to see the amount of cheating and scandals and whatnot. I was like, my God, what did I do? It's like discovering that your, boyfriend you just fallen in love with is, drug dealer. Um, uh, I believe that when we sit down at the felt, it should be done with zero aid of technology or anything outside. It's the game that we played, and all the knowledge is between our ears. So for me, there's a big line of what you do to study to prepare yourself, and it's all investment in yourself. Versus when you go and play, it's gotta be a solo performance. Now, I find it ridiculous that people can text, their friends during the final table who are observing the final table and sending them reads on their opponents or feature tables or any table whatsoever. I find it ridiculous that you can ask a friend by just texting, even not using anything else. What should I do in this spot? Or, here is a hand that I played against this guy. How can I exploit him, better next time? I think all of that does not belong to a ring. I think cell phones should be banned. Uh, as a business person who plays poker and has gazillion of things going on, I don't think it's a hardship at all to keep my phone in my backpack. And if I need to take a phone call, then step outside of the felt. And I think there should be zero help, whether it's main event of the final table or whatnot. Now, I will also say this. I believe that the solver tooling companies such as ours, NGTO Wizard, and others have plenty of technology to prevent using these tools as real-time assistants. And if GTO Wizard is not doing it, it's not because it can, because it doesn't want to. And the main reason why that is the case is because the user pattern of somebody who studies versus somebody who looks up the spots when they are playing online for cheating is completely different user patterns. And they're distinct enough that you can separate them at real time, and you support the type of the usage of the platform that is around study, and you shut down the quarantine, if you will, and close down the usage of the software that is very clearly sifting through the spots, looking up the optimal play.
Right. No, that's fascinating. So I want to close out. Thank you for your time here. Don't go away yet, but thank you for your time with Octopi. I mean, I was fascinated by all of this, having seen the journey for the last 18 years of poker. And remember, I first started watching poker mainly with Moneymaker and Farhall. There's just two people fighting for a championship. There was no technology, and to think that it's come a long way, and to see how the study then translates to people sitting there using their brain and their practice to take on an opponent. It's just fascinating, all of this together. And I think Octopi is a very exciting venture. And I think the industry will be indebted to you and your team and Andrew for beginning this project. I appreciate it.
I hope so. Judgment is out, but it's an incredibly epic journey for a great cause, and a lot of fun to be blazing these trails.